Yeah, congratulations on this great report to TI UK. I was involved in researching and writing a report for TI back in 2013, which was about corruption risks in local government. And there we identified 3 areas which were most prone to risk. One of them was planning permission, another social housing, and the third was public procurement. And in those areas at that time, what we found were conditions that were really conducive to corruption. Low levels of transparency, poor external scrutiny, evidence that there were local networks of cronyism, and also evidence that the outsourcing of public services was undermining public accountability. We also warned in that report that the risks of corruption were in fact mounting, and that was because of several factors at the time. One was austerity, which was just eroding the capacity of councils to do internal controls. They simply were under pressure financially, and they tended to cut the back office functions rather than the front office public service delivery. The Audit Commission had been abolished, which had reduced the potential for there to be an external body that had an overview of where the risks were. The National Code of Conduct for councillors had been withdrawn, and we were left with a situation in which there was absolutely no requirement for councils to even have a standards committee or a gifts register. No requirement to have a standards committee or a gifts register, just to emphasise, that seems pretty incredible, I think. On top of that, I think there was a reluctance to investigate alleged wrongdoing, perhaps, and often a denial that corruption was an issue at all. Okay, we're 7 years on. I think this new report from TI provides evidence that the risks have indeed mounted. They've also intersected with a housing crisis that was ongoing and has become worse in that 7 years. And I think, one of the things that is great about the report is that it provides clear evidence of the impact of not taking action to address corruption risks. And it also shows that corruption is not just some abstract white-collar problem. It leads to public policy being made and public funds being spent in ways that are not in the public interest. So councils continue to have significant discretionary power over many aspects of planning decisions. And as John said, we know that where there's discretionary power, there is often the potential for a corruption risk. Concretely, what that means is that there's potential for property developers to improperly influence decisions. They might do it by using connections to lean on decision makers. They might do it by offering bribes, not necessarily money, but can be jobs to councillors for during or after they leave office. Of course, we know that a lot of councillors have jobs with property companies whilst they're in office. The TI report shows that. It might be by wining and dining councillors into a position where they feel obliged to abuse their office to help. And there are several areas where this discretion can occur. It can be in the planning decisions themselves, but it can also be in decisions around change of use, whether a piece of land can be used only for industrial building or whether it can be used for housing. That's a really critical decision that property developers might want to influence. There's decisions around these Section 106 commitments where developers promise to give back to the local community, and also the monitoring then of those commitments. And there's decisions around whether the requirements to build a certain amount of affordable housing are put into contracts and whether they are actually monitored again and enforced. So there's several areas, I think, where there is still a lot of discretion. And what we really need, and what I think the TI report shows, is that there are actually some quite simple fixes that we could do to reduce the amount of discretion, or to just make it more transparent so that we as the public can much better hold to account those decision makers.